pleasure for me to get to sit down with Rebecca Heineman, aka Burger, and talk to her about all of her experiences in the video games industry. Now, she's been with it from the very beginning, one of these early pioneers, but unlike a lot of those pioneers, she has remained current, remained a vital and significant part of the industry. She was one of the co-founders of Interplay, who, of course, is famous for the role-playing games. She did the Bard's Tale series, Dragon Wars. She did Task Times in Tone Town. And she's also worked on the Microsoft Connect program and worked with Ubisoft and a lot of different experiences. Very interesting and charismatic individual. She had a lot of great stories to tell, and I'm sure you will want to hear those. So without further ado, here is Miss Rebecca Heineman. All right, I am here with Rebecca Heineman, who I just want to read this. I found this on your website. I thought this was
Oh
a great,
boy. Okay.
a lovely byline. So who is she? She is a 46-year-old woman, computer programmer, game designer, writer, engineer, pastry chef, Mark's woman, loving mother of 5, even though my kids have grown up and moved on. So you feel that pretty much covers everything? Mark's woman, really?
Yes, I used to have a Barrett 50 caliber a long time ago. Not anymore. I don't have any firearms. They've long since disappeared in the divorce, etc. But yeah, I used to go out with some friends shooting, and like here's a little piece of trivia. In the game Wasteland, in the packaging, there's a picture of Alan Pavlish and and Mike Stackpole and so forth, all dressed as Mad Max Road Warriors. The guns they're holding are mine.
So I understand that you like to bake cakes. Is that?
Yes, I do. Cakes, pies, cookies. I have kids, and they always loved it when mom cooked them stuff. And I had this cake recipe I did called Death by Chocolate. And right now it's a favorite for both my son Jacob and my son William, in which every birthday I have to bake them that cake. And now to understand why it's called Death by Chocolate, you start with chocolate fudge cake mix. And as I pour it in a bundt cake pan, I put a layer, and then I put like either M&Ms or little chocolate baking bits. Then put in a layer, put some more chocolate, put another layer, put some more chocolate until all the bundt can's filled. Once it's done, bake it, take it out, and then when I ice it with like chocolate icing, chocolate fudge icing, very chocolatey, and then I put Hershey's Kisses all over the cake or sprinkle with M&Ms. So essentially, it's just one bite would make you lose, more like make you gain 5 pounds. And my son's just cannot get enough of it. And I'm like, oh, crap. And so there goes my diet every time I make that damn cake.
Have you ever played Portal?
Yes, and it's not a lie. In fact, that's a funny story. At Microsoft, for my first, okay, they have a policy, or more like tradition in my department at the Advanced Technology Group, that every time it's your anniversary of being hired there, you're supposed to bring a pound of M&Ms for every year you've been there. So like if you're a 10-year veteran, you bring 10 pounds of M&Ms. So my first anniversary, I made a Death by Chocolate cake with 1 pound of M&Ms baked into it. And then I went around the office area and made, cake this way. And then over where the cake was, I put big signs saying "not a lie" with a big arrow pointing to it.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about how you got started in the games industry. Now, I had never read a story this interesting. I talked to a lot of designers, but apparently it was a National Space Invaders Championship in
That was
1980.
it.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Um, I had a friend named Tom Wicker, who he and I would play video games all the time. I didn't have that much money, so I had a 2600 and an Apple II. I was copying the cartridges, and I designed my own little dev kit, shall we say, because I was just too flat broke. But he had every single cartridge made. Whenever a cartridge was made, he would buy it. So I would grab it, copy it from him. We played Slot Racers, Space Invaders all the time. And Atari announced that there was going to be a Space Invaders tournament at the Topanga Canyon Plaza somewhere in July of 1983. He was convinced I had to be good, and I was like, yeah, right. So he drives me up to Topanga Canyon Plaza, and as it's my turn, I start playing, and I'm so bored playing this game, playing Space Invaders. Yeah, I'm bored. I was talking with the judge because I had nothing else better to do, and it's like, oh yeah, I just lost the base. Okay, play, 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 play. Like an hour or two go by. Oh, I lost on the base. Yeah, whatever. Base, play, play, play. What's my score? And he goes like, oh yeah, you got like 83,600 points. And of course, my reply was, is that good? Well, it turns out that it was more than double the second place player. So they announced that I was the winner, and I was like, "You're kidding me!" And I saw Tom just jumping up and down like his pants were on fire, all happy for me. And like, I'm going to New York for the finals. Oh, so in November, I flew by myself to New York City to play in the championships. Now, just so you know, back then I was kind of like a loner and lived by myself. Um, Flew up to New York City, met the other four contestants. There was Hing Ning from San Francisco, Frank Tetro from New York, and I don't remember the guy from Chicago or Dallas. All I knew is that the Dallas kid, we kept calling him Tex, and the kid from Chicago, he was being sponsored by some television or appliance store, kind of like a Best Buy in Chicago. So he had this big T-shirt on him, and he was like, total sponsor hog and so forth. Of course, it was ironic that when the game played, the aliens landed on him in 10 minutes. So he got kicked out. But they took us on a tour of New York, etc. But finally, they said, we're going to start the game. And they had 5 TVs, 5 Ataris, and so forth. And we all sat there. We each got a shirt which had the name of the city on us. Like mine says Los Angeles. And then we started the game. And now the original rule was sudden death. We just play the game. We get 3 bases, maximum difficulty. I think it was game 1 or 2. I don't remember which one it was. But the idea was whoever was the last man standing. Well, after an hour and 45 minutes, only the guy from Chicago was out. Everyone was still killing the aliens. And at this point, they had a whole bunch of press behind us. And they were getting antsy because, an hour and 45 minutes of Space Invaders does kind of get boring. So then they just said, okay, and that concludes the Space Invaders tournament. And I'm like, does this mean we could stop playing? And that's the announcer says, yeah, I just reached over the cartridge and just yanked it out. It's like, that's it. I'm done with this game. So I'm sitting there going like, okay, I want that Atari 800 computer because that was the second place prize. The fifth place was like a $50 gift certificate. Then the next one was like $100 worth of stuff and a video game collection. But the Atari 800 computer, oh gosh, I really wanted one because the grand prize was a stand-up arcade game. And I was like, yeah, I don't want that. Well, they then said, okay, 5th place goes to Chicago, naturally. 4th place went to the guy from Texas. Then 3rd place went to Hing Ning of San Francisco. And when they said that, it's like I was sitting there going, I got the computer, I got the computer. And then when they said, and the computer goes to Frank Tetro of New York, I went, crap. And then that's what, wait a second. And then and the winner of the National Space Invaders tournament is the kid from Los Angeles. And it's like, what? And then I won, and I got my 15 minutes of fame where they said, "So how do you feel?" I was like, and, because I won that tournament, I got to meet up with Arnie Katz and Bill Kunkel of Electronic Games Magazine, and I started writing some articles for them on how to beat video games. I was a consultant for a book called it was Tom Herschel, I think his name was. He did, how to master the video games and how to master the home video games. If you ever get those books, if you look in the acknowledgments, my name's in there. And he asked me all these questions, and I helped him write both books. But as I worked with the Electronic Games magazine for like 6 or 7 months writing articles, that's when I let Arnie Katz know that I know how to program the Atari 2600. And he's like, that's impossible. You're just a kid. So it's like, well, I made my own dev kit. I made this. And of course, I admitted the fact because I was just totally cheap and broke. Um, but then he said, hey, there's a company in Towson, Maryland called the Avalon Hill Game Company, and they are really looking for anybody who could program the Atari. And I said, sure. So they called me up. I think it was either Jack or Eric Dot. I don't remember which one. But they called me up, and literally within 10 minutes, they said, okay, you're hired. Here's a plane ticket. Come work for us. And of course, then one of the questions asked is, and you are 18, right? So it's like, yep. In reality, nope. But yeah, I lied my ass off for a couple of years because, I started in the video game business when I was like 14. Um, and so I lied for a couple of years about my age. But I then flew to Towson, Maryland, worked for Avalon Hill, taught them how to program the 2600, worked on what eventually became London Blitz, and it was Out of Control was the other one. And then I started going from company to company. I did some work with Time Warner on a play cable system. Then I went to work for just little consulting things. But then I wanted to leave New York because when I was working in Time Warner, I was living in New York. And a friend of mine, a guy named Alan Pavlish, was saying, hey, there's this company called Boone Corporation that could really use some VIC-20 programmers and people who know the Atari. And it says, like, if it gets me back to California, please. And so I got a job there. And I was doing, of all things, Chuck Norris Super Kicks, Robin Hood. These are all games that we were contracting for Zonix, i.e. K-Tel Records. And we had a running joke at the office, which was, if you were being bad, we'll make you work on a Zonix game. Well, I must have been bad because I worked on 3 of them. So after that, I started working on some original titles, Final Eclipse, which never got shipped, and then an original version of The Demon's Forge, which was done by Brian Fargo. And I was redoing some of the graphics routines for him on that. But then Boone Corporation folded, out of business, kaput. We were all fired. And that's when the employees of Boone, Brian Fargo, Troy Worrell, Jay Patel, and myself, with an investor who's named by Chris Wells, got together and thought, we could do better. And Brian went out and got us a contract with a place called the World Book Encyclopedia, doing some really cheesy entertainment titles. And we created a company called Interplay. And, I still remember when we were at the place signing the lease, and, the guy said, what's the name of the company? And I was looking at him like, what is the name of our company? And it's like, okay, it's 883 Production Place, Interplay Productions. And I'm like, okay. And then, of course, for the first 2 years of Interplay, we had all these companies calling us saying, so are you Intercourse Productions or Foreplay Productions? And what's your catalog of X-rated stuff? And we're like, but yeah, and that started really my video game career, because I was at Interplay for 11 and a half years.
And that's all for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll be back next week with more from Rebecca Heineman. In the meantime, you can visit us at armchairarcade.com. Got a lot of great blogs and forums there. Good community of people. Plus, you can download the latest episode of Armchair Arcade Radio. That's our monthly audio podcast. Lots of great content for you. Thought I would leave you with a thought from Matt Groening, creator of The Simpsons. Oh, loneliness and cheeseburgers are a deadly mix. See you guys next week.